The champagne glass slipped from my hand the moment I heard the number. $300,000. That's how much my parents had just gifted my sister. In front of 200 guests, under crystal chandeliers, while a live band played and everyone applauded. I stood there holding a small white envelope with my name on it. I already knew something was wrong, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. My mother leaned close enough for only me to hear. "Don't look disappointed," she whispered, smiling for the cameras. "You should be grateful we even gave you anything." Then she stepped back and clapped as if she hadn't just reduced me to nothing. The envelope in my hand felt lighter than air. Inside it was a check for $1,000. $1,000. At my sister's $300,000 wedding. The guests didn't know. They were too busy admiring the imported flowers and 5-tier cake flown in from Italy. But I knew. And my father knew. And the way he avoided eye contact told me everything. This wasn't about money. This was about rank. She was the investment. I was the obligation. The golden child shimmered in a designer gown, thanking everyone for believing in her love story. I stood near the exit, invisible in a dress I paid for myself. No one asked if I needed help. No one ever did. When the speeches began, my father proudly announced, "We always support our children equally." The room erupted in applause. Equal. I almost laughed. Equal didn't look like this. Equal didn't feel like humiliation disguised as generosity. And then it happened. My brother-in-law's father leaned toward me at the table. "So," he said casually, "what did your parents gift you when you got engaged?" I smiled. "I didn't." "Oh," he said, confused. "They must be saving something special." "Yes," I replied softly. They were. They were saving the truth. And I had just received it. Clear. Cold. Final. That night I didn't cry. I watched. I watched my mother brag about venue deposits. I watched my father sign vendor checks without blinking. I watched my sister glow under approval I had chased my entire life. And I understood something that hurt more than the money. They weren't accidentally unfair. They were intentional. When the bouquet toss ended and the dance floor filled, my mother approached me again. "You should try harder," she said lightly. "Maybe then we'd feel confident investing in you." Investing. That word settled like concrete in my chest. I wasn't their daughter. I was a bad stock. And they had already chosen their winner. I walked outside before the tears could betray me. The valet stand was nearly empty. My car, 12 years old, slightly rusted, fully paid off by me, sat between luxury SUVs. I stared at it for a long time. Then I got in. I didn't wait for the cake cutting. I didn't wait for goodbye hugs. I didn't owe them an exit speech. I drove home with the envelope on the passenger seat. At a red light, I opened it again. $1,000. After years of being told, "We'll help when the time is right." Apparently the right time had passed. Or maybe it had never been meant for me. By the time I reached my apartment, something inside me had shifted. Not broken. Shifted. I placed the check on the kitchen counter. Then I opened my laptop. If I wasn't worth investing in, I would build something they could never afford. And I would never ask them for a single dollar again. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken, but because something inside me refused to stay small anymore. At 3:17 a.m., I transferred the $1,000 into my savings account. I labeled the transaction seed money. Not gift. Not charity. Seed. By sunrise, I had made 3 decisions. I would not attend family brunch the next morning. I would not explain my absence. And I would not wait for permission to start over. They thought they had evaluated my worth. They had no idea they had just funded my exit. 2 weeks later, my sister posted her honeymoon photos. Maldives. Private villa. Infinity pool over the ocean. My mother commented, "So proud of you, sweetheart. You deserve everything." Everything. I stared at the word for a long time. Then I closed the app and opened a spreadsheet, because while they celebrated luxury, I was calculating survival. I gave myself 90 days. 90 days to prove that I was not the low-return child. I didn't quit my job immediately. I couldn't afford dramatic exits. Instead, I started at night. Freelance marketing projects. Small business branding. Social media consulting for companies that couldn't afford agencies. I charged less than I should have, but I delivered more than expected. And slowly referrals started coming in. 3 months later, I made my first $8,000 month. Not from my parents. Not from inheritance. Not from wedding leftovers. From skill. From grit. From staying awake when everyone else slept. I remember sitting on my apartment floor that night. No champagne. No applause. Just me, my laptop, and a number on a screen. And I whispered to myself, they were wrong. That same week my mother called. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. "We didn't see you at Sunday dinner," she said. I smiled. "I've been busy." "With what?" "Building." Silence. Then a small laugh. "Well, don't exhaust yourself. Not everyone is meant for big things. Not everyone." I didn't argue. I didn't defend. I just worked harder. By month 6, I had replaced my full-time salary. By month 8, I had doubled it. By month 10, I signed my first 5-figure contract. And something strange happened. The quieter I became with my family, the louder my results got. Meanwhile, the perfect life began showing cracks. Whispers reached me through distant relatives. The honeymoon villa had been financed on credit. The wedding upgrades exceeded the original budget. My brother-in-law's stable investment career wasn't as stable as advertised. I didn't celebrate their struggles, but I noticed the shift. Because golden spotlights fade when bills arrive. One afternoon, almost a year after the wedding, I received a message from my sister. "Can we talk?" Short. Unusual. Curious. I agreed to coffee, not because I missed her, but because I wanted to see what equality looked like now. She arrived 10 minutes late, designer bag still intact. But the glow was gone. "I heard your business is doing well," she said carefully. "It's growing." "That's amazing." Her compliment felt rehearsed. Then she lowered her voice. "Dad mentioned you're making significant income." I nodded. "And?" She hesitated. "We're restructuring some things. Investments didn't go as planned." There it was. The first crack in the marble statue. "And?" I repeated calmly. She swallowed. "Mom thinks maybe we were all too hard on you." Interesting. Not sorry. Too hard. Like I was an exam they graded poorly. I leaned back in my chair. Hard built me. She didn't like that answer. Weeks later, my mother called again. This time, her tone was different. Less superior. More strategic. "We're proud of you," she began. I almost laughed. Pride is cheap when success is visible. She continued. Your father and I were discussing family investments. Perhaps we could collaborate. Collaborate. The same people who gave me $1,000 under chandeliers. Now speaking partnership language. I kept my voice steady. I don't mix business and family. Silence stretched. You're being dramatic. No, I said softly. I'm being careful. That night I reviewed my contracts again. Not because I doubted myself, but because I finally understood something powerful. They had never expected me to grow without them, and growth without permission is threatening. By year 2, my company crossed $600,000 in revenue. No investors, no loans, no co-signers, just systems, strategy, and sleepless nights. I moved into a better apartment. Not a penthouse, not luxury, but mine, fully funded by me. The first piece of property in my life that didn't come with comparison. And then, almost 2 years to the day of that wedding humiliation, I received another invitation. Anniversary dinner. Private restaurant. Family only. I stared at the gold lettering. They wanted the full circle moment. They wanted optics. They wanted harmony. I accepted. Not for reconciliation. For clarity. Because this time I wasn't arriving with an envelope. I was arriving with leverage. And they had no idea the balance of power had already shifted. The restaurant was the kind that doesn't print prices on the menu. Soft lighting. Private room. Crystal glasses. Symbolism mattered to my parents. Appearances always did. When I walked in, every head turned. Not because I was underdressed. Not because I was overdressed. But because I looked different. Calm. Unbothered. Unafraid. My sister stood to hug me first. Her smile looked thinner than I remembered. You look successful, she said. I am, I replied. No modesty. No shrinking. Just fact. My father cleared his throat once we were seated. We're proud of how far you've come. There it was again. Pride. Now that I required no funding, I nodded politely. Thank you. My mother studied me carefully, like she was reassessing an asset she once undervalued. We always knew you were capable, she added. That one almost made me smile. Always. Interesting rewrite of history. Dinner began with small talk. Market trends. Housing prices. My sister's consulting projects that sounded suspiciously unpaid. Then my father leaned forward. We've been reviewing some financial matters. Of course you have. He continued. The wedding expenses were higher than anticipated. I remained silent. We made sacrifices to ensure everything was perfect. Sacrifices. The word hovered in the air. Finally, my mother said it. We may need temporary liquidity support. There it was. Not congratulations. Not reconciliation. Liquidity. From the daughter who received $1,000. I folded my hands calmly on the table. How much? My sister looked down. My father answered. 200,000. The number didn't shock me. The audacity almost did. Loan? I asked evenly. Yes, of course, my mother said quickly. Family terms. Family terms. Like wedding terms? Like public humiliation terms? Like that's all you deserve terms? I took a slow sip of water. You once told me not everyone is meant for big things. My mother stiffened. That was taken out of context. I remember the context very clearly. Silence fell heavy. The power dynamic in that room had shifted so completely it almost felt visible. My sister finally spoke. We just need a little help stabilizing things. Little. $200,000. Stabilizing what exactly? I leaned back in my chair. I won't fund lifestyles that were built to impress people. That landed. My father's jaw tightened. So this is revenge? I shook my head slowly. No. This is boundaries. They didn't expect composure. They expected emotion, anger, bitterness, tears. Instead, I gave them terms. If I were to consider any involvement, I said carefully, it would be a documented equity position in any shared asset. Three faces blinked at me. Legal language changes conversations. You're treating us like strangers, my mother said quietly. No, I corrected. I'm treating this like business. The same way you treated me. My sister's composure cracked first. You've changed. Yes, I said softly. I had to. The truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. Anger fades. Clarity stays. And clarity had taught me something simple. They didn't want me when I needed support. They wanted me when I became support. That's not family. That's leverage. The dessert menus arrived. No one touched them. My father tried one last angle. We supported you emotionally. I almost laughed. Emotionally? At the wedding you supported optics. Not me. But I didn't say that out loud. Instead I stood. I appreciate the invitation, I said calmly. And I wish you financial stability. That sentence was surgical. Not cruel. Not loud. Just final. As I walked toward the exit, my mother followed. You're making a mistake, she whispered urgently. No, I replied. I stopped making them the night of the wedding. Her face hardened. You'll regret cutting off your family. I paused. Turned slightly. I didn't cut you off. I just stopped chasing approval. That was the real shift. And she felt it. Outside, the night air felt lighter. 2 years ago, I left a wedding humiliated. Tonight, I left a private room empowered. Same family. Different version of me. I checked my phone as I waited for my car. A notification popped up. Quarterly revenue update. $1.2 million. I stared at the number for a moment. Then I smiled. Not because I won, but because I no longer needed to. Across town, the golden child was learning something new. Spotlights don't pay bills, but discipline does. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't the other one. I was the independent one. 3 weeks after the dinner, my sister called. Not texted. Not messaged. Called. Her voice wasn't polished this time. It was shaking. I need to talk. No attitude. No superiority. Just panic. Apparently, the consulting projects weren't projects. They were appearances. Her husband's business, the one showcased so proudly at the wedding, was drowning. Luxury cars? Leased. Penthouse? Rented. Designer lifestyle? Credit. Reality? Debt. Big debt. When you build your life for applause, silence becomes terrifying. Social media was the first crack. The perfect couple stopped posting. No more rooftop dinners. No more curated vacations. People started whispering. And society, the same society my parents tried to impress, turned ruthless. Invitations slowed. Calls reduced. Respect faded. Status is fragile when it's borrowed. Then it happened. The penthouse was gone. Downsized quietly. No announcement. No explanation. Just disappearance. My mother stopped attending gatherings. My father's tone became defensive whenever finances were mentioned. The golden narrative was collapsing, and with it, their illusion of superiority. My sister came over one evening. No luxury car. No designer bag. Just her. For the first time in my life, she looked smaller than me. Not physically, but emotionally. I didn't know it was this bad, she admitted. That sentence mattered, because for years she acted like she knew everything. They wanted to keep up appearances, she said about her husband. They didn't want anyone to think we were struggling. I listened quietly, because I understood something she didn't. Struggling isn't shameful. Pretending you're not is. Then she said something unexpected. They always compared us. That caught my attention. What do you mean? I asked. She looked down. Every time you achieved something, they pressured me harder. Interesting. The golden child wasn't free. She was performing. For them. For approval. For the image. Suddenly the hierarchy looked different. Maybe she wasn't favored. Maybe she was displayed. My mother called me later that week. Her tone softer than I had ever heard. Family should stand together. That line again. But this time it sounded less strategic. More desperate. We're not asking for money, she added quickly. Just emotional support. Funny how roles change. I realized something powerful. Success didn't hurt them. Independence did. They were comfortable when I was chasing them. They were unsettled when I stopped. One night, I received a message from an old family friend. You handled yourself with dignity. Word had traveled about the dinner. Quiet strength travels far. Without noise. Without drama. And slowly, the same relatives who once praised my sister's wedding started asking about my business. Respect shifted. Not loudly, but clearly. Meanwhile, my sister's marriage was cracking under pressure. Financial stress reveals character. And character doesn't lie. She once laughed when I said I preferred stability over luxury. Now she whispered, "You were right." No celebration. No smugness. Just truth. But here's the twist. I didn't feel victorious. I felt detached. Because I finally understood something. Being the golden child is a cage. Being the overlooked one is training. She was raised for attention. I was raised for resilience. Guess which one survives storms better? One evening, my father visited alone. No ego. No authority tone. He sat across from me and said quietly, "I underestimated you." That was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get. And strangely, it was enough. The family dynamic wasn't repaired, but it was reset. Power wasn't emotional anymore. It was internal. And I had it. Not because I earned more, but because I needed less validation. Across town, the spotlight had dimmed. And in the quiet space it left behind, reality stood tall. And for the first time in years, I wasn't living in comparison. I was living in control. 6 months later, things were quieter. No drama. No tension-filled dinners. No silent competitions. Just distance. Healthy distance. My sister's marriage didn't survive the pressure. No big scandal. No public explosion. Just slow erosion. When money disappeared, so did admiration. And when admiration disappeared, so did love. She moved into a smaller apartment. Started working for real. Not posting. Not performing. Just working. For the first time in her life. My parents aged faster that year. Stress does that. So does pride. The same relatives they once tried to impress, now they barely visited. Because society doesn't respect struggle. It respects power. And power had shifted. One afternoon my mother came to see me. Alone. No strategy in her voice. No polished sentences. Just honesty. We were wrong. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was real. We thought pushing you down would keep balance. That sentence explained everything. They feared imbalance. They feared one child outshining the other. So they minimized me. To protect the image. Not the family. The image. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need apologies. But hearing that, it closed something inside me. I stopped needing validation a long time ago, I told her gently. She nodded. And for the first time, she looked relieved. Because I wasn't angry. And she wasn't defending. We were just two people finally being honest. That night I drove past the hotel where the wedding happened. The same grand entrance. The same golden lights. But it felt smaller now. Not because the building changed. Because I did. 2 years ago I left that place humiliated. Feeling less. Feeling unseen. Today, I didn't feel anything. No bitterness. No pain. Just growth. Success gave me money. But self-respect gave me freedom. And freedom? That was worth more than any wedding spotlight. Here's the truth no one talks about. Sometimes you're not the black sheep. You're just the one who refuses to play a role. The golden child shines bright. Until the electricity bill arrives. But the overlooked one learns how to build the power source. My sister and I talk occasionally now. Not as competitors. Not as comparisons. Just as adults. She once told me something quietly. I wish I had your strength. I smiled. You always had it. You just never needed to use it. And that's the difference. Comfort hides potential. Struggle reveals it. My father respects me now. Not loudly. Not emotionally. But practically. He asks for advice. He listens. And that's enough. Because respect earned through silence lasts longer than praise given through bias. The final lesson? You don't win by humiliating people. You win by outgrowing the system that tried to shrink you. I didn't destroy my family. I just stopped competing for space at their table. And when I built my own table, they finally saw my value. If you're ever treated like the other one, remember this. The backup child often becomes the independent one. And independence is the ultimate power.